My name is Lily Sullivan, and I'm 32 years old. For 15 years, my wealthy parents treated me like their personal servant, while my younger sister Sarah was pampered like royalty. Every holiday and every family gathering, I was stuck in the kitchen while she entertained the guests. But last Christmas Eve, when my mother demanded that I prepare dinner for 25 of Sarah's VIP friends with only 24 hours' notice, something inside me finally snapped. What happened next didn't just change the dynamic of our family, it revealed a secret that left everyone, including a Fortune 500 CEO, utterly speechless. Now, let me take you back to that December evening when everything changed. I was in my Manhattan apartment, carefully folding clothes into my suitcase, when my phone rang. The caller ID flashed, Mom, and I already knew this conversation wouldn't be pleasant. At our family home in Connecticut, Christmas decorations sparkled across every surface. I knew that because I had been the one hanging them every year since I was 17. Lily, cancel whatever silly plans you have for tomorrow, my mother Margaret said, without even a hello. Her voice carried that familiar, commanding tone that allowed no argument. I kept folding my business blazer. What's happening tomorrow? Sarah's hosting her networking group for Christmas Eve dinner. Very important people, Lily. 25 guests, including executives from Pinnacle Corporation. She paused, and I could practically hear her smirk through the phone. You'll need to arrive by noon to start cooking. 7 main courses, 10 sides. The menu's already planned. My fingers tightened around the phone. Sarah's networking group. Of course. My younger sister worked in PR and never missed a chance to show off how well connected she was. Mom, Your sister's making important connections that benefit this family. You should be grateful to help. She cut me off sharply. Just like always. It's not like you have anything else going on? I glanced at my laptop, where an email from Victoria Chen, CEO of Pinnacle Hospitality, glowed on the screen. If only my mother knew. Use the good china, she continued. These aren't your usual crowd, Lily. These are people who matter. People who matter. Unlike me, apparently. Her voice was brisk, dismissive. I'll text you the menu, don't embarrass us. And then the line went dead. I looked down at my plane ticket to Florida. Departure time, 8 p.m. tomorrow. My hand didn't even shake anymore. After 15 years of this, I had finally learned the difference between their emergencies and my priorities. I sat on my bed as memories surged back like a bitter tide. 15 years of being invisible. Except when they needed something. Every Thanksgiving since I was 17, Lily will handle the cooking while Sarah entertains our guests. Every Christmas, Lily's between jobs again, but at least she's useful in the kitchen. Every family gathering where Sarah was proudly introduced as our successful daughter in public relations, while I was simply, Lily's here too, she's helping out. The last family party had been the worst. Sarah's engagement celebration, 200 guests at the country club. I had spent 14 hours preparing appetizers while Sarah held court in a $3,000 dress our parents had bought her. When one guest asked what I did for a living, my mother actually laughed. Lily doesn't have Sarah's social skills, but she cooks well. I stood and walked to my closet, pulling out my second suitcase. Inside, protected in a leather folder, was the contract that would change everything. My company's name, Stellar Events, was embossed in gold at the top. I had deliberately chosen a name with no trace of Sullivan. For 5 years, I had built my empire in silence, 50 employees across 3 locations, with a client list that included luxury resorts and Fortune 500 companies. And tomorrow, while my family expected me to slave over their stove, I had a meeting that would finalize a $2 million contract. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Mom says you're cooking tomorrow. Don't screw it up. Important people will be there. I looked again at my plane ticket, Flight 447 to Fort Lauderdale, departing at 8 p.m. Not this time, I whispered to the empty room. For once, they would have to figure it out themselves. I had a plane to catch. The irony wasn't lost on me as I continued packing. Two glaring signs had already revealed exactly where I stood in this family, and I had ignored them for far too long. The first was how they introduced me. At last month's country club dinner, my father had actually told his golf buddy, "Sarah's our success story. Lily's between opportunities." Between opportunities. That very morning, I had closed a $500,000 contract, but to them, I was perpetually unemployed, perpetually failing. They never asked about my work, never wondered how I managed to afford my Manhattan apartment or my new car. Their assumptions were so absolute that when I once mentioned traveling for business, my mother had laughed. "What business? Are you calling your little cooking hobby a business?" The second sign was even harder to ignore. Last summer, when I visited home, I found my childhood bedroom transformed into a storage room for Sarah's overflow wardrobe. My trophies, my books, every trace of my existence in that house had been packed into boxes and shoved into the basement. Sarah needed the space, my mother explained, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. She's building her career. Image matters in PR. Meanwhile, Sarah had been handed the entire third floor, fully renovated at our parents' expense, complete with a home office and a walk-in closet. The message couldn't have been clearer. One daughter was an investment, the other was invisible. I zipped my suitcase closed and thought back to my company holiday party just last week. My employees had thrown me a surprise celebration for landing the Pinnacle account. 50 people who valued me, who respected my leadership. My phone buzzed again with another text from Mom. "Don't forget the truffle oil. These people have sophisticated palates." These people. As though I didn't regularly cater events for CEOs and celebrities. But why would she know? She had never once asked. And that was the deepest cut of all. They had never even been curious. Not once in 5 years had anyone in my family asked, "So Lily, what exactly do you do all day?" They had written their own narrative. Poor Lily can't hold down a job. Lives in a cramped studio. It was actually a 2-bedroom condo. Probably surviving on grandma's savings. I had invested that money into my business. At least she can cook. I employed 3 executive chefs. I unlocked my phone and scrolled through my photos. There I was, shaking hands with the mayor at a charity gala I'd catered. There was my team, cheering at the opening of our 3rd location. There was the feature article in Hospitality Quarterly, titled, "The Quiet Revolutionary of Luxury Catering." Not a single one of those moments had been shared with my family. I had learned early that success without their permission was somehow threatening. The one time I mentioned landing a major client, my mother had immediately shifted the spotlight back to Sarah's latest PR campaign for an energy drink. "At least you're useful in the kitchen," she'd said, patting my hand like I was a child who had drawn a particularly nice picture. I opened my laptop and pulled up my company dashboard. Stellar Events, founded without a penny from my parents, built without the Sullivan name, and thriving without their approval. Tomorrow's revenue alone would surpass what Sarah made in 6 months, but they would never know it. Earlier, my assistant had texted, "Forbes wants to feature you in their 40 Under 40 issue. They're especially interested in your story of building a business without family support." Without family support? If only Forbes knew the half of it. My family hadn't merely withheld support, they had willfully ignored my existence outside of their kitchen. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, or had your success dismissed as meaningless, you'll understand why I did what I did next. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Then came the text message that changed everything. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder, and reality hit me like cold water. If I stayed silent, if I played the servant again tomorrow, I would lose everything I'd spent years building. The Pinnacle Hospitality contract wasn't just another deal, it was the deal. $2 million in exclusive catering rights for their 5 Florida resorts, and a partnership that would put stellar events on the national map. The meeting was locked in, December 26th at 9 a.m., non-negotiable. Victoria Chen, Pinnacle's CEO, had been crystal clear. I'm flying back to Singapore on the 27th. Lily, if we don't finalize this in person, the board will go with our second choice. Their second choice, my competitor, had been circling this contract like a vulture. But it wasn't just about the money. 50 employees were counting on me. Maria, my head chef, had just put an offer on her first house based on the expansion this contract promised. James, my operations manager, was planning to send his kids to better schools. This wasn't just my dream anymore. It was theirs too. I pulled up my bank statements. Yes, I was already successful. But this contract would change everything. It was the line between being a strong regional player and stepping onto the national stage, the kind of opportunity that comes once in a career. My phone rang. It was my CFO. Lily, just confirming you'll be at the resort tomorrow evening for the pre-meeting dinner with Victoria's team. I'll be there, I said, glancing at my packed bags. Good. Victoria specifically mentioned she's excited to meet the CEO who built such an impressive company without any family money or connections. Without family money or connections. If only she knew how true that was. My phone pinged with an email from my mother. The subject line screamed, "Urgent Christmas Eve menu." My stomach twisted as I opened it. 7 main courses, 10 sides, dietary restrictions for 5 guests, wine pairings, dessert selections. The level of detail was staggering. She had planned every dish, every garnish, every serving plate. Use the Waterford crystal and the silver with the monogram, she'd written. These are important people, Lily. One of them is Victoria from Pinnacle Corporation. She could be valuable for Sarah's career. I nearly dropped my phone. Victoria Chen. I skimmed the attached guest list, and there it was, clear as day. Victoria Chen, CEO, Pinnacle Hospitality. My heart pounded as the realization sank in. The very woman I was flying to Florida to meet, the one who held the future of my company in her hands, was about to walk into my parents' dining room, expecting to be served by their unemployed daughter. Another text flashed across my screen. Sarah. Mom says Victoria Chen will be there. She's huge in hospitality. I'm hoping to pitch her on PR services. Don't embarrass me with your amateur cooking. Amateur cooking. The irony burned. I had catered Victoria's company retreat for 500 people just last month. We'd handled it seamlessly through my executive team, though Victoria and I hadn't met in person yet. That was scheduled for tomorrow. I sank onto my bed, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. Stay and play the servant, pretending to be a failure in front of the woman who was about to make me a millionaire, or walk away, face my family's wrath, and secure my future. A notification appeared on my screen. Your ride to JFK Airport is scheduled for 6:30 p.m. tomorrow. I looked at the menu again, then at the contract, then at the plane ticket. The choice had never been clearer. I made my decision. I picked up my phone and dialed my mother. She answered on the first ring. Finally, I was starting to worry you weren't taking this seriously. Mom, I can't do it. Silence. Then her voice turned razor sharp. What do you mean you can't? I have a business trip. I'm flying to Florida tonight. Don't be ridiculous. Her voice rose, incredulous. What possible business could you have? An important meeting? She actually laughed. Lily, stop being selfish. Your sister needs this. Sarah has a full catering team she could hire. With what money? Do you know how expensive that is? I bit my tongue. The irony of her lecturing me about catering costs while speaking to someone who owned a catering company was almost unbearable. Family comes first, she snapped. Or are you too selfish to understand that? I understand perfectly. Family comes first when you need something from me. How dare you? When's the last time you asked about my life, Mom? We know about your life. You're between jobs, living in that tiny apartment. I'm a CEO. Another laugh, this one cutting. A CEO of what? Your imaginary company? It's not imaginary. I have 50 employees. Lily, enough with the fantasies. Sarah needs this. You owe us. I owe you? You raised me, fed me, kept me in your home, while treating me like hired help. You're being dramatic. What else do you have to do? Sit in your apartment alone on Christmas? I looked at my business class ticket. I have a flight at 8 p.m. Cancel it. No. If you leave, don't bother coming back. The threat hung heavy between us, the same one she had wielded so many times before. Usually it worked. Usually, I caved. Then I guess this is goodbye, I said quietly. You can't be serious. I'm done being the family servant, Mom. I'm done being invisible until you need something. You ungrateful. I ended the call. My hands were shaking, but for the first time in 15 years, it wasn't from fear or anger. It was from freedom. My phone immediately lit up with texts from Sarah. What did you just do? Mom's having a meltdown. Stop being so dramatic and get over here. I powered it off and kept packing. They'd figure it out. They always did when they had to. When I turned it back on to set one thing straight, it rang instantly. Sarah, what is wrong with you? She screeched. Mom's calling all the relatives saying you've lost your mind. I have a business meeting on Christmas Eve. Stop lying. This is about that stupid fight last month, isn't it? When Mom gave me your room. My room was converted into your closet years ago, Sarah. And no, this is about my actual career. What career? You cook sometimes. I own a catering company. Sure you do. Her voice oozed condescension. Look, I'll pay you to cook. How's $200? I almost laughed. My day rate for personal chef services was $5,000. Not that she'd ever know. This is non-negotiable, Sarah. I'm not coming. Mom will disown you. That's her choice. You're really going to ruin Christmas? Ruin my networking opportunity? Victoria Chen will be there. Then hire a caterer. On Christmas Eve? Are you insane? No one's available. I walked to the kitchen counter where I'd left a notepad earlier. On it, I'd written down 3 catering companies that handled last-minute emergencies, complete with 24-hour hotlines. It was more than they deserved, but I wasn't completely heartless. I'm not driving to Manhattan to get your stupid note. Then Google emergency catering services. You're being selfish. I'm being professional. My business requires me to travel. What business? She screamed. Stop pretending you're something you're not. My phone buzzed. Your driver will arrive in 2 hours. I have to go, Sarah. If you do this, you're dead to us. I'm already invisible to you. What's the difference? I hung up and switched my phone off completely. On the counter, I placed the notepad with the catering numbers in plain sight, just in case they showed up. Next to it, I set down one of my business cards. Lily Sullivan, CEO, Stellar Events. They wouldn't come. They wouldn't see it. But at least I'd know I tried, even as I finally chose myself. At exactly 8:07 p.m., the plane lifted off from JFK, and I exhaled. Below me, Connecticut dissolved into a blur of holiday lights. Somewhere down there, my mother was probably dialing every relative, painting me as the ungrateful daughter who had abandoned her family on Christmas. I opened my laptop and pulled up the Pinnacle contract. There it was. Clause 15.3. CEO presence required for all strategic planning sessions. Victoria had insisted on that clause herself, saying she only worked with founders who were hands-on. 17 new emails from her team filled my inbox, confirming tomorrow's schedule: the pre-meeting dinner at 7:00 p.m., the formal presentation at 9:00 a.m. on the 26th, and the contract signing immediately after board approval. I clicked on Victoria's latest message. Looking forward to finally meeting you in person, Lily. I've been following Stellar Events' growth for 2 years. Your reputation precedes you. My reputation. If only Victoria knew that the same woman she was about to partner with was supposed to be serving her dinner at my parents' house right now. A text from my assistant pinged through the plane's Wi-Fi. Forbes wants to know if they can mention your family background in the article. They're especially interested in the built from scratch without family support angle. I typed back. The article runs December 27th, correct? Yes, it goes live at midnight on the 26th. Perfect timing. By the time my family realized who I really was, the contract would be signed, and the news would be public. I opened the draft Forbes had sent for approval. The headline blazed across the screen: From Invisible to Invaluable, How Lily Sullivan Built a Catering Empire Without a Dollar of Family Money. The universe, it seemed, had a sharp sense of humor about timing. When I arrived at the Pinnacle Resort Suite, the sight took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Atlantic, and a bottle of champagne rested on ice beside a handwritten note. Welcome, Miss Sullivan. Looking forward to our partnership. Victoria Chen. I set down my bags and checked my phone. 47 missed calls from my mother. 18 from Sarah. Even 3 from my usually silent father. I deleted the voicemails without listening. Instead, I opened an email that made me smile. My PR manager had sent the final proof of the Forbes article with a note. They've moved you to the cover story. It'll be on every newsstand December 27th. The cover image stared back at me. Professional, confident, powerful. Nothing like the invisible daughter my family believed me to be. The article detailed everything. How I had started with $5,000 saved from waiting tables, how I had built the company without investors, and how I had deliberately chosen to succeed without leaning on my family's connections. Another email caught my eye, this one from Victoria herself. Lily, I'll be arriving late to tomorrow's dinner, coming straight from a social obligation in Connecticut. Hope that's all right. Connecticut. She was at my parents' house right now, probably wondering why the lavish dinner she'd been promised hadn't materialized. My assistant texted again. The Forbes reporter wants to know if you'll mention your family's reaction to your success. I thought for a moment, then typed back. Tell them my family will find out when everyone else does, when the magazine hit stands. That's cold, boss. I love it. I walked to the window and watched the waves crash against the shore. In 12 hours, I'd sign the biggest deal of my career. In 36, my face would be on every Forbes cover in the country. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's success they never saw coming. And while I slept peacefully in my Florida suite, chaos was erupting in Connecticut. According to the texts I read the next morning, the disaster had unfolded exactly as expected. By 6:00 p.m. on Christmas Eve, my mother finally realized I wasn't coming. The kitchen remained spotless and empty, the refrigerator stocked with nothing but basics, while 25 hungry guests were due within the hour. Sarah's frantic texts told the story. 6:05 p.m. Mom's losing it. She's calling every restaurant in a 50-mile radius. Everything's closed. How could you do this to us? At 6:45, even my father broke his silence. Your mother is having a breakdown. Please reconsider. By 7:00 p.m., sharp, the guests began to arrive. Investment bankers, PR executives, and, most importantly, Victoria Chen, CEO of Pinnacle Hospitality. They walked in expecting the kind of elaborate Christmas Eve dinner my mother had been bragging about for weeks. Sarah's text at 7:23. We're ordering pizza. Pizza, Lily. Do you understand what you've done? At 7:47. Mom just told everyone you're unreliable and always have been. She's blaming you for everything. The pizza showed up at 8:15, 5 boxes from Papa John's and 3 from Domino's, because one chain couldn't handle the rush order. My mother, who had promised an exquisite home-cooked feast, served greasy delivery pizza on her Waterford Crystal. Sarah's updates grew more desperate. 8:40. Victoria Chen looks disgusted. People are leaving. 8:52. Mom told everyone you're mentally unstable. She said you've always been the family disappointment. 9:33. Party's over. Everyone left early. Victoria Chen didn't even stay for dessert. Mom says you're dead to her. I set my phone down and ordered room service breakfast. In just a few hours, I'd be sitting down to dinner with Victoria Chen myself. I wondered if she'd bring up the disaster in Connecticut. I wondered if she'd notice my last name. And most of all, I wondered what my mother's face would look like when she learned the truth. The pre-dinner meeting at the Pinnacle Resort was scheduled for 7 p.m. I arrived early, dressed in my best suit, ready to close the deal of a lifetime. What I hadn't expected was Victoria Chen walking in with a story already burning on her lips. Lily. She greeted me warmly, though her eyes betrayed exhaustion. I have to apologize for being late. I just flew in from the most bizarre Christmas Eve party in Connecticut. My heart rate stayed steady. I had practiced for this moment. Oh? What happened? You won't believe this. She sat down, shaking her head. I was invited to what was supposed to be an elegant dinner party. The hostess, Margaret Sullivan, same last name as you, funny coincidence, had promised an elaborate meal prepared by her daughter. I nodded, careful to keep my expression neutral. We arrived to absolute chaos. No food prepared, an empty kitchen, the hostess scrambling to order pizza. Pizza? For executives and business leaders she'd been trying to impress for months? That must have been awkward. It gets worse. She spent the entire evening tearing down her older daughter, calling her unreliable, unstable, a disappointment. Apparently, this daughter was supposed to cook everything but just disappeared. Victoria pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. A photo glowed on the screen. My mother, flushed and humiliated, Papa John's boxes stacked on her prized mahogany table. The younger daughter, Sarah, kept trying to salvage things, but it was hopeless. She even tried to pitch me PR services while serving pizza on china plates worth more than most people's rent. Did you stay long? 20 minutes after the pizza arrived, the hostess was too busy making excuses and blaming the absent daughter to actually host. She hesitated. The most unprofessional evening I've ever attended. At one point, she even said her daughter was too stupid to hold a real job, so they just had her cook for the family. My hand stayed perfectly steady on my portfolio. That's terrible, isn't it? I can't imagine treating family that way. Victoria exhaled, then set her phone aside and opened her menu. Enough of that. Let's talk about something far more pleasant, your incredible company. What happened next is where everything began to unravel spectacularly. The next morning, December 26th, I stood in Pinnacle's boardroom, ready to present to Victoria and her team. The contract lay neatly on the table. My presentation had been flawless, and everything was moving perfectly, until Victoria's assistant hurried in holding an iPad. Ms. Chen, you need to see this. A photo from that Connecticut party is going viral on LinkedIn. Victoria took the iPad. I watched her expression shift. Curiosity, then confusion, then shock. She looked at me, back at the screen, then at me again. Lily, she said slowly. This photo. From the Sullivan house in Connecticut. She turned the screen toward me. It was a family portrait from last Thanksgiving. Sarah front and center with my parents, smiling radiantly, and me, blurred in the background, almost an afterthought. Is this you? Yes. Sullivan. Margaret Sullivan is your mother. Yes. The room fell silent. Victoria's team exchanged startled glances. The legal counsel set his pen down. The woman who called you unreliable, unstable, unemployable, is your mother. Yes. Victoria rose, walked to the window, then turned back to me. You were supposed to cook that dinner. The one that turned into a pizza fiasco. I was. But you were here meeting with us. I chose my business over being treated like a servant. Victoria pulled up another clip on her phone. Your mother told everyone you don't have a job, that you're a failure who can only cook. She doesn't know about stellar events. Her brows lifted. Your own mother doesn't know you're a CEO? She never asked. Victoria sank into her chair, astonished. Let me get this straight. Your family has no idea you run one of the most successful catering companies on the East Coast? None. They don't know about my 50 employees, my 3 locations, or this $2 million contract we're about to sign. They think I'm unemployed and living in a studio apartment. Victoria's business partner James leaned forward. Forgive me, but I need clarification. The woman serving pizza on Waterford Crystal last night has no idea her daughter could have catered the entire event at 5-star quality. She's never once asked what I do for a living. She just assumes I'm a failure. For a moment the room held its breath. Then Victoria burst into laughter. Not a polite laugh, but genuine, unrestrained laughter. Oh my God! She spent the whole evening trashing her disappointment of a daughter. And that daughter is you, the CEO I've been trying to partner with for 2 years. She turned to her team, still grinning. Gentlemen, I think we're about to sign the most interesting contract of our careers. Victoria pulled out her phone again, this time opening Google. I have to know something, she murmured, typing my name. Within seconds, the results appeared. Her eyes widened. Oh my God. She turned the screen toward her team. Look at this. The first result was my Hospitality Quarterly feature. The second, my James Beard Award nomination. The third, a Wall Street Journal profile on women entrepreneurs. Your family doesn't know about any of this. Before I could respond, her assistant burst back into the room. Ms. Chen, you'll want to see this. He connected his tablet to the boardroom screen. Forbes had just announced their 40 Under 40 cover story for tomorrow. My face filled the screen. Professional headshot, bold headline. From invisible to invaluable, how Lily Sullivan built a catering empire without a dollar of family money. Victoria read aloud from the preview. Sullivan, 32, built stellar events from a $5,000 investment into a multi-million-dollar enterprise, deliberately avoiding any family connections or support. I wanted to prove that success doesn't require a famous last name or family money, Sullivan states. She lowered the tablet slowly, her eyes locking onto mine. This goes live tonight at midnight, and your family still doesn't know. They will, when everyone else does. James let out a low whistle. Your mother is going to wake up and see her unemployable daughter on the cover of Forbes. Victoria's assistant scrolled further down the article. It says here you have a 6-month waiting list for events. Is that true? 8 months during peak season. Victoria pushed back her chair and stood. I need to make a phone call. She stepped into the hall, glass walls revealing her pacing, speaking rapidly into her phone. Her expression was animated, half astonishment, half excitement. Inside the boardroom, her team stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. She returned 5 minutes later with a strange smile. I just called Margaret Sullivan. My stomach dropped. You what? I told her I was very disappointed in last night's event and that I'd be taking my business elsewhere. She begged me to reconsider, said it was all her older daughter's fault. Victoria. Then I told her I'd just signed a $2 million contract with the most talented entrepreneur I know. She asked who. I said, your daughter, Lily Sullivan, CEO of Stellar Events. The room went silent. The sound she made, Victoria continued, was like the air had been sucked out of her lungs. Then she hung up on me. I glanced at my phone. On silent, it showed 47 missed calls in the last 3 minutes, all from my mother. Victoria extended her hand across the table. Ms. Sullivan, let's sign this contract. I believe we have a partnership to celebrate. As I signed my name on the $2 million deal, my phone lit up again with a new message from my father. Your mother just fainted. What the hell is Stellar Events? Champagne corks popped, glasses clinked, and the room buzzed with celebration. Meanwhile, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. I finally excused myself to check the flood of messages. Mom. Answer your phone now. Sarah. Is this some kind of sick joke? Dad. Your mother is hysterical. Please call Sarah. Victoria Chen just told everyone you're a CEO. Mom. This is cruel. Lily, pretending to be successful just to humiliate us. I walked back into the boardroom where Victoria and her team were still toasting. My family thinks I'm lying about being a CEO. Victoria's eyes gleamed. Would you like me to send them something? Before I could answer, she lifted her phone and snapped a photo. Me, contract in hand, flanked by Pinnacle's executive team, champagne glasses raised. She typed quickly and hit send. I just posted it on LinkedIn, she said. Tagged Stellar Events, Pinnacle Hospitality, and Margaret Sullivan of Connecticut. On the screen, her post appeared, thrilled to announce our $2 million partnership with Stellar Events and their brilliant CEO, Lily Sullivan. Her company's excellence in luxury catering will elevate Pinnacle's guest experience across all properties. An honor to work with someone who built their empire entirely from scratch. Within minutes, Victoria's post exploded, dozens of likes, shares, and comments. Industry leaders I'd worked with for years chimed in with congratulations. Former clients added glowing testimonials about Stellar Events. My phone rang. Sarah. With Victoria's permission, I put it on speaker. This can't be real. Sarah's voice trembled. It's real. You've been a CEO this whole time? 5 years? Why didn't you tell us? You never asked. You all assumed I was a failure and treated me accordingly. Mom's having a breakdown. She's calling all her friends trying to explain. Everyone saw Victoria's post. That's not my problem anymore. How can you be so cold? I looked around the boardroom, at Victoria, at her executives, at people who respected me without question. I'm not cold, Sarah. I'm done. I'm done being invisible until you need a cook. I'm done being the family disappointment. I'm done pretending to be less than I am so you can feel more comfortable. But we're family. Family doesn't treat each other like servants. Call me when you're ready to meet Lily Sullivan, the CEO, not Lily the cook. I ended the call. Victoria raised her glass. To boundaries. We all toasted, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. That evening, I finally returned my mother's call. She answered before the first ring ended, her voice breaking. How could you do this to us? She was crying, actually crying. Do what, exactly? Humiliate us. Victoria Chen told everyone at the country club about your company. People are calling, asking why we didn't know our own daughter was successful. You never asked about my life, Mom. We asked. We knew you cooked sometimes. You assumed I was a failure. For 5 years, you've introduced me as unemployed. You've never once asked about my work, my apartment, my life. You should have told us. I tried. Remember 3 years ago, when I mentioned landing a big client? You immediately changed the subject to Sarah's PR campaign for some energy drink. You literally said, "That's nice, dear, but Sarah's work is really taking off." Silence. I left catering numbers on my counter. I continued evenly. You could have saved the party. We don't have keys to your apartment. You've never asked to visit my apartment. You don't even know where I live. That's not. Mom, I employ 50 people. I run 3 locations. I've been featured in national publications. I was nominated for a James Beard Award. And you thought I was unemployed, because that was easier than actually seeing me. We're your family. My family needs a servant. My business needs a CEO. I chose my business. This is about spite. No, Mom. This is about self-respect. I've built something incredible, and I did it without you. Not your money, not your connections, not even your belief in me. Her voice cracked. What do you want from us? Nothing anymore. That's the point. For the first time in my life, I need absolutely nothing from you. The Forbes article drops at midnight. You might want to prepare yourself. It spells out exactly how I built my company without family support. You told Forbes about us? I told Forbes my truth. If that embarrasses you, maybe ask yourself why. In the background, I heard my father's voice. Margaret, maybe we should listen. I'm done listening. She snapped at him, then turned back on me. You've destroyed this family. No, Mom. I've finally built my own life. Call me when you're ready to be part of it, as equals, not as master and servant. I hung up gently, lighter than I had felt in years. The social consequences came swift and brutal, but not for me. Within 48 hours of Victoria's LinkedIn post, my family's carefully polished reputation had crumbled. The country club gossip mill was in overdrive, and Sarah's panicked texts painted the picture. Pinnacle just canceled our PR contract. Victoria Chen said they don't work with people who lack family values. That was a $500,000 annual loss for Sarah's firm. Mom got removed from the charity board. They said it was unrelated, but everyone knows. Dad's golf buddies are asking him how he didn't know his own daughter was a millionaire. Meanwhile, the Forbes article had gone viral in our Connecticut social circle. The headline alone, built without a dollar of family money, was damning enough. But the quote that truly broke them was buried in paragraph 3. My family assumed I was unemployed. It was easier to build an empire in silence than to fight their assumptions. For the first time in years, my father called me directly. His voice was low, heavy. Lily, I need to say something. I waited. I knew you were doing something with catering. Years ago, I saw the business registration when mail got mixed up. But your mother was so certain about who you were supposed to be. I should have spoken up. I'm ashamed. It was the most honest thing he'd said to me in 15 years. Why didn't you? I asked. Because it was easier to let her narrative stand than to fight it. And that made me complicit. Your success is remarkable, and we missed it because we weren't looking. Your mother's lost 3 charity positions. Sarah's firm is hemorrhaging clients. Everyone wants to know how we could treat our successful daughter like hired help, while praising Sarah for mediocre PR work. I never wanted to hurt anyone. You didn't hurt us, Lily. We hurt ourselves. We built a story where you were the failure and Sarah was the star. And now everyone can see how blind we were. He paused, almost rueful. That pizza disaster is already country club legend, Margaret Sullivan, who bragged for years about her entertaining, serving Papa John's on Waterford Crystal, while her CEO daughter was signing million-dollar deals. Despite everything, I felt a twinge of sympathy. Dad, I don't apologize. We earned this. Every single consequence. While my family unraveled in their social catastrophe, my life was exploding in the best possible way. The Forbes article had featured a photo of me at the Pinnacle signing, champagne in hand, surrounded by executives who respected my work. The contrast with that Thanksgiving photo, where I stood blurred in the background like hired help, wasn't lost on anyone. Within a week of publication, Stellar Events received more than 200 inquiries. High-end clients who had hesitated before now wanted to work with the CEO who had built an empire from nothing. My inbox overflowed with interview requests, speaking invitations, and partnership proposals. Victoria Chen quickly became my loudest champion. She introduced me to her network, relishing the story of the Christmas Eve disaster. With a mischievous glint in her eye, she'd say, "Imagine having a golden goose in your house and treating it like a servant duck." From her introductions alone came 3 major contracts worth a combined $10 million. To meet demand, I hired 20 new employees, promoting Maria to executive chef and James to COO. During one of our expansion meetings, Maria said something that stayed with me. "You know what I love most about this company? You built it for people who were overlooked. Half of us were told we'd never amount to anything." She was right. Without even realizing it, I had surrounded myself with people like me, talented, determined individuals who had once been dismissed, underestimated, or invisible. Then came a message from my assistant, a reporter's text. "Your story is everywhere. Food Network wants to discuss a documentary. Working title, Invisible to Invaluable, The Lily Sullivan Story." But the best moment came when I opened an invitation from Cornell's School of Hotel Administration, my dream school, the one my parents once said was too ambitious for me. The topic of my lecture, Building Success Without Permission, Creating Your Own Path in Hospitality. As I reviewed my speaking notes, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "We need to talk, please." I stared at it for a long moment, then archived it and returned to planning my future. Success, I'd learned, was the best response to disrespect. But boundaries, those were the greatest gift I could give myself. 3 months later, I agreed to meet my family at a neutral location, a quiet restaurant in Manhattan. My territory, not theirs. They looked different, smaller somehow. My mother had lost her imperious edge. Sarah's usual smugness had drained away. My father seemed to have aged a decade. "Before anyone speaks," I said, sliding a single sheet of paper onto the table. "These are my terms." They leaned in to read. 1. Equal respect or no contact. 2. No more servant treatment. Ever. 3. Public acknowledgement of my success. 4. Genuine apology, not just words. 5. Therapy. Family and individual. "This is non-negotiable," I continued. "I'll be your daughter, not your servant. Your sister, not your staff. Those are my terms." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Lily, we've lost everything. My reputation. Sarah's clients." "That's not my responsibility, Mom." "We know," my father interjected softly. "We're not here to blame you. We're here to ask for a second chance." Sarah spoke next, her voice unsteady. "I was jealous. You were always better at everything, but Mom made me feel special by making you feel small. I see how sick that was now." It was the most honest thing she'd said in years. "I'm in therapy," she added quietly. "The therapist says we built a family system where someone had to be the scapegoat for everyone else to feel successful. You were assigned that role before you even had a chance to fight it." My mother reached across the table, though her hand stopped short of mine. "I'm sorry. Not just for Christmas Eve, but for 15 years of blindness. I turned you into a servant because I couldn't bear the thought that you might be more successful than the life I had planned for you." I looked at each of them. "I'll consider it. But know this. I'm not coming back to the same family. If we rebuild, it's as equals." They nodded. "And Mom," I added, "you'll pay full price if you ever want Stellar Events to cater anything." For the first time in months, she actually smiled. Fair. 6 months later, I hosted my first family dinner, this time in my own home. The 2-bedroom condo overlooking Central Park, the one they hadn't even known existed. My team from Stellar Events catered the evening because I no longer cooked for family gatherings. That was a boundary I would never cross again. As my parents and Sarah sat at my dining table, being served by employees who called me boss, the role reversal wasn't lost on anyone. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. I raised my glass of wine. I want to be clear about something. Success doesn't need permission. Self-worth doesn't require validation. And respect? Respect is non-negotiable. My mother nodded. She had been in therapy for 4 months and had even stood up at the country club to issue a public apology, admitting she'd been blind to my success. It didn't save her reputation, but it was the beginning of repairing our relationship. Sarah's PR firm had pivoted. She approached me professionally, humbly, asking if Stellar Events might consider hiring her agency. I told her to submit a proposal like everyone else. She did, and it was good. We were considering it. My father had become my unexpected ally. After years of silence, he finally found his voice. Now he introduced me, everywhere, as my daughter, the CEO, with genuine pride. But the biggest change was in me. I no longer hid my success, no longer dimmed my light to make others comfortable. Stellar Events had grown to 100 employees across 5 cities. The Food Network documentary had aired to critical acclaim, and every morning I looked in the mirror and reminded myself, I'm Lily Sullivan, CEO of Stellar Events, not the family servant, never again. Because your value never decreases just because someone else refuses to see it. Remember that.